Okay, so this session, we're going to have a discussion group. So this may be a little bit different than the discussion groups that you're used to. We will start out with just a little bit of silent meditation, and then I will pose some questions. I think we'll have our discussion group maybe on generosity. And so I'll pose some questions, maybe 3-4 questions, could be 2, for you to think about in your meditation. And then after we ring the bell and come out of meditation, then you'll divide up into groups of like 5 or 6 people. Don't go with your friends or relatives, go with people that you don't know so well. And you can space yourself out in here or go into the other room. And then you'll sit in the circle in each group, and each person will share their reflections on the questions, doing all the questions at one time when you speak. And while each person is speaking, then there's no crosstalk. But after each person has spoken, then you can have more of a discussion on each other's points. So that way, everybody must speak. And when you're sharing your reflections, not more than like 3 minutes. So please, we don't need your whole life story. I know it's the most important thing in the universe, but restrain yourself. Okay? And yeah, so the people who speak just English, maybe you can meet together and have your own group, maybe, let's say, in that corner. And then all the Dutch-speaking people you can spread throughout the universe. And so then you'll have the discussion group, maybe 35, 40 minutes, something like that. I'll come back and then we'll kind of share reflections. We don't do the kind of thing where each group makes a report. That's too boring. But, people can share their individual reflections. Okay? Good. Okay, so let's start just with some breathing, letting the mind settle. So reflecting on generosity from a very personal point of view, are there certain people that you find it easier to give to, and certain people who you find it more difficult to give to? So this could, let's focus right now just on the giving of material things. And think in your own experience about who you find easier to give to, who you find more difficult. And are there certain things that you find it easier to give or more difficult to give? So money, food, your possessions, going out and buying new possessions. Yeah, what material things are easy for you to give and what more difficult? And then if we think of the different kinds of giving, giving money and possessions, giving protection to those who are in danger or those who are lost, giving love and encouragement, and giving the Dharma by showing the path. Which of those are easier for you to give and which are more difficult? what ideas do you have for increasing your generosity? What factors in yourself or attitudes in yourself would you like to subdue or encourage that would help you to take delight in giving? Okay, so let me go over the questions again. You might want to write them down so you remember them for the group discussion. The first one is, in terms of material generosity, what people do you find it easier to give to? What people more difficult? And the second question is, what things do you find it easier to share and be generous with, and what things do you find it more difficult to give away? And then third, of the different kinds of generosity of material things, generosity of protection, helping those in need, generosity of love and encouragement, and generosity of the Dharma. Which ones of those do you, again, find it easier to do, or do you do most often, and which things are more challenging? And then the last question, what ideas do you have for increasing your ability to be generous? Or are there certain things that block you that you would like to overcome so that you could be more generous? Okay. Again, to review what we're going to do, we don't count off to form groups. Just find 4 other people that aren't relatives or very close friends, and form your group and sit down somewhere. And each person, one by one, shares their reflection on all four questions. And until you go around and everybody speaks, then there's no discussion. Okay? After everybody's spoken and shared their reflections, then you can have some discussion. And then I'll come back in at some point and ring the bell, and then we'll have a little bit of group discussion and debrief. Okay? Go to it. Okay. So what points came out for you in the discussion? What did you learn? What made you really think about things?
What a lot of us shared, correct me if I'm wrong, is that fear and generosity, they are sort of, they do sort of opposite dance together.
What's the fear of?
Of not having enough. When you've given away, of not having enough. So
if I give, I won't have.
I won't have in the future.
Yeah.
And so there's this sort of a dance between your discerning wisdom. What do I need in order to survive? And what am I not holding back just because of the fear which comes from attachment?
Yeah. Okay. And so that relates a little bit to the extent to which we, really believe in karma, doesn't it? Yeah, because we talk, oh yes, generosity brings wealth, ethical conduct brings good rebirth. But when it comes to being generous or ethical, there's also this life to be concerned with, and I can get some advantage this life, and I don't really, I'm not sure how much I'll need, so I better keep it, So it's interesting because we talk about karma, but to the extent that we actually live by what we say we believe is another story. So again, I'm not saying giving away everything, that's a bit impractical, but the extent to which we evaluate, well, what do I need and what don't I need, and, like this. What other points came? Yeah?
What's a bit related with comment, that the feeling of shortage is also an inner feeling that has not so much to do with having a lot of things or not. That is it's an inner feeling, and if what we call by resourcing, you can change that feeling, and you can have richness even if you don't possess much, or and it's more an openness in which everything which is in abundance can flow, and wherever it is needed it can land. And I'm not sure if I make myself clear, but if everybody holds on to things, it cannot flow, and if everybody would be open, everything, love or attention or material things can flow, and wherever it is needed.
Yeah, so part of what what makes us connect as human beings is this kind of flow of good, giving possessions or love or encouragement or whatever. And if we are all afraid and we hold back, then we all have a feeling of poverty. Yeah. So it's interesting how the feeling rich or feeling poor is a state of mind. It doesn't really depend on what you have. Yeah, especially material. But the other kinds of giving that connect us as human beings is quite important. And the giving of material things often symbolize the giving of love or affection or care. But the actual feeling of wealth is in here. Because it's interesting. I have one Tibetan friend, a Rinpoche. He was telling me that when they first fled Tibet and they were living in Baksa, the old British POW camp, then everybody was very sharing. All the monks from the different monasteries shared with each other because everybody was poor. And so you shared what you had. And then as the monasteries started getting reestablished in India and building themselves up again, then he told me they didn't share so much. Yeah, which is interesting, isn't it? When you have more, you don't share so much. When you have less, you feel like there's nothing to lose, and so you share. And so I think we've probably all met some people who are quite wealthy, but they find it difficult to give because there's this fear of, I won't have enough, and what if some horrible thing happens and I need my resources. So you find even all these young people who made a lot of money through the tech companies, they still need to make more money. There's nobody that ever kind of gets to a point that says, I have enough. Because no matter how much you have, there could be a catastrophe and we could need a little bit more. So it's interesting how that goes, and how sometimes having very little really makes us much more open and sharing.
For me, it became very clear that I really want to analyze the person on if they really need something or if they really deserve something before I give it to them. And I also, I think that's the reason why I don't like. That's part of the control thing, but I also feel I don't like people asking me things, because then I have to make a decision right away without having the possibility to think about it and make that and analyze it.
Yeah. So it is wise to kind of check out, especially if you're giving donations to organizations, to check out the organization and if the money is being used properly and what percentage goes to the people who need and what percentage goes to admin and PR and things like that. So we want to check that out. But sometimes we get, with regard to individuals, especially when somebody's right in front of us, it's hard to do that, and we get a little bit picky. At least I do. Yeah. It's like, they're asking me for this. Do they really need that? This individual who's asking, do they really need that? Or are they just asking because, what they think I have extra, or what's the story here? Yeah. So I too find it a little bit disturbing, because I want to be able to give so that it comes out well, But you don't always know. And especially when someone's right in front of you. Yeah. And then the question comes, well, am I being too cautious? They're only asking for €5. Why am I making such a big deal? And then the mind starts, going round and around, this or that. Am I being stingy? Maybe I should just give, but I can't. And then we wind up in a stew pot of confusion, don't we? Yeah. Quite interesting how the mind works, isn't it? We make ourselves so confused trying to do something virtuous. Yeah? And sometimes the impetus to give just arises very naturally without trying, and then we stop ourselves. Oh, maybe I shouldn't, maybe this, maybe that. Yeah, we question our feeling of generosity. Strange mind we have, huh? You think? Khensur Dampa Tekchuk, who wrote this book, I visited him once, more than once, but in India, and he, although he was the former abbot, he didn't live in real nice circumstances. He went back to his Kamsen, which was at that time quite modest. And one day there were a few of us students there, and he cooked for us. Usually you serve your teacher. Yeah, he wouldn't have any of it. He sat on the floor, he put us on chairs, he cooked for us and served us dinner. I was so embarrassed, because it was completely opposite from the way it was supposed to be. But he was very adamant. And then while we were eating, one beggar came into the Kamsen, the courtyard of the Kamsen, and came upstairs to his room and said something. And he just got up, went into another room, and pulled out this blanket and gave it to the beggar, who then went away, who left with the blanket. And it really made us think. It was like, I wonder if he knew the beggar or if he didn't. The beggar clearly asked for a blanket. He went in, he got a really nice blanket and gave it to this beggar, and then came back and sat down, and it was all just kind of very natural. There wasn't a big to-do about it. Yeah? And it made me think, this is the way all of our giving should be. Just very, very flowing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh.
We also discussed that it's sometimes hard to also be skillful in giving.
Yeah.
The wisdom, if it's received well, because sometimes it also causes confusion with the other person, that they feel they're in debt to you and they're worried about that all the time, or that they feel like you treat them as lower, and that was not your intention, but sometimes it can feel that way. And
Yeah.
how to deal with that?
Yeah, it's interesting how sometimes if we're generous, the person feels special and they feel appreciated. And sometimes if we're generous, they feel like we're pitying them and they feel offended. And we could be giving the same thing with the same motivation, and we can't predict how the other person's going to take it. Yeah? And the same thing when people give things to us. I've often done discussion groups about the other part of giving, which is the generosity of being able to receive. Because when we let other people give to us or take care of us or whatever, then we're encouraging their generosity. And how much difficulty people have in receiving from other people. Yeah, like you said, we feel in debt. We wonder maybe they want something out of me. They're manipulating me. We wonder, am I obligated to do something and give them something back now? We get so tangled up with lots and lots of thoughts and worries instead of just a simple action of here. Yeah. The power of mental afflictions. Yeah, we make everything very complicated. Anybody else? Okay, then we're out of time anyway, so we'll stop here. Any prayers, or should we just take a break? Yeah. Okay, so let's take a half an hour break. Come back at 3:30. Okay?